So if you are looking at if you view an advertisement on Facebook, YouTube, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't require them to have that product, and as far as at that price. But if it's found that they're committing fraud or trying to, bait and switch, where they advertise for one thing and then they don't have that, then it can cost. Then you can sue them for fraud. So now, one of the key things of a contract is genuine consent is required. So simply put, that means that both parties have to want to be in it, and it has to be because they understand the facts of the case or the facts of the matter, and that it's reasonable. So for instance, if someone tells you something that's untrue, then you couldn't have genuinely consented to something. And so that's where the whole advertisements as a fraud comes in. So let's see. One of the beautiful things about it, certain clauses in there, for instance, choice of forum and choice of law clause, where you can make sure that it's as favorable to you as possible. Now, that being said, you have to be careful that it's not too one-sided, that there's not that for the other party, that it can't be just the fact that there's one person getting all the benefit with the other one being harmed substantially. But for the most part, contracts, that's also called a contract of adhesion, or there can be what's called economic duress, where you're forced to sign something because you have no choice due to money. So it's like they're the only vendor allowed. And so you have to sign with them in order to get the benefit of that deal. Those are some of the top reasons why contracts are super awesome, and also why it's important that you know about them. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And as always, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I look forward to getting to know you and hopefully having you come on.